So without further ado, I want to start us off with our devotions to begin with. We have someone very special who will be giving us our devotions today. The person that you will be seeing within our devotions is Jovita DeYoung. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about her before I put in her presentation. Jovita began dance classes at the age of 5 when she wasn't able to get physiotherapy that she needed. This became a blessing in disguise as she started moving and dancing, inspired by the worship songs of her home church, Jubilee Fellowship CRC in St. Catharines. Jovita now choreographs all her own liturgical dancing.
There's a peace I've come to know, though my heart and flesh may fail. There's an anchor for my soul. I can say it is well. Jesus has overcome, and the grave is overwhelmed. The victory is won. He is risen from the dead, and I will rise when He calls my name. No more sorrow, no more pain. I will rise on eagle's wings before my God, fall on my knees and rise. I will rise.
There's a day that's drawing near, when this darkness breaks to light, and the shadows disappear, and my faith shall be my eyes. Jesus has overcome, and the grave is overwhelmed. The victory is won. He is risen from the dead, and I will rise when He calls my name. No more sorrow, no more pain. I will rise on eagle's wings before my God, fall on my knees and rise. I will rise, and I hear the voice of many angels sing, worthy is the Lamb, and I hear the cry of every longing heart, worthy is the Lamb, and I hear the voice of many angels sing, worthy is the Lamb, and I hear the cry of every longing heart, worthy is the Lamb, worthy is the Lamb.
I will rise when He calls my name. No more sorrow, no more pain. I will rise.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jovita. That was amazing. So welcome to our October series. We are so thankful you are here. I just thought I'd just tell you a little bit about it, what to expect. I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to find out everything about it in a few minutes. I'm going to just drop in the link to our website that we have, because we do have a dedicated website, so that all our recordings that we do will be uploaded to that. Any sort of presentation notes that our speakers are giving will be uploaded to that. So very soon I will just put that in our notes for you. But without further ado, I want to give them enough time to speak. We have Mark Stephenson and Cara Milne, who are leading us off in our series today. So to introduce Mark is currently Director of Disability Concerns Ministry for the CRCNA. Mark has served as the Director of CRC Disability Concerns since 2006 and pastored 2 congregations before that. He and his wife, Bev, have children and grandchildren. Their oldest daughter, Nicole, lives joyfully with severe multiple disabilities. Mark plans to conclude his work with disability concerns at the end of this year. And now for Cara. Cara is the owner of Empowered Planning Limited, a business that promotes positive and valuable roles for people with disabilities. Cara has been part of the Disability Concerns Ministry for over 10 years as a regional advocate and advisor. She is passionate about building communities in churches. And you can learn more. I'll drop her website in as well. So I am going to turn it over to Mark and Cara now.
Thank you, Becky. I see that I unmuted first, so that means I get to start first. I just wanted to welcome all of you. We are so excited to have all of you and have been dreaming about this for quite a while, so it feels really good to finally be here. I always say there is beauty in online learning in the sense that there's people I right now know that are all over the place, and if we were in one place, we would miss a lot of you. So we're going to take that as a gift. When Mark and I had a dream about kind of starting us off and kind of beginning this learning series, we actually ended up having just a really great conversation about issues that we see happening in the field and where our hearts and passions lie. And so I just said to Mark, what if we just kind of interviewed each other? What if we just actually had this conversation live? And so he was a trooper and said yes. So we are keeping this quite casual in the sense of it's not an official presentation, but there are just things about Mark that I would love all of you to know. And so I get to start. And I just want to have all of you learn and be part of Mark's world in the way that I feel like I've had the honor of. And I think it helps us as we kind of prepare for this month, but also kind of get our hearts ready to learn. And so Mark, I'm going to have you just begin, because I think your story starts us off in a great place. You have served well for a very long time in disability concerns. And Becky sounded very happy that you were leaving, but I'm going to be honest, the rest of us, we are not happy at all, but we're trying to be joyful for you. So it is kind of an interesting, I think, closure to a story. And I'm curious if you would just share how the story started. I know you led churches, but how did you get to disability concerns? So I just would love everyone to learn about you. So tell us about that.
Thanks, Cara. Yeah, I'm thrilled that we can do this together. Mm-hmm. And really appreciate the opportunity, like Cara was saying, to be gathered with all of you. This is a tremendous pleasure and privilege for us to be able to introduce the new resource for you. There we go. And it's been a long process to get this 3rd edition out, and I'm thrilled that finally it's out in print and in online, and we'll be translating into 3 different languages: Korean and Spanish and French. There's an audio version, an EPUB version. Okay, so where did my story begin in terms of my path with disability? My wife Bev and I were married in 1982. Our first child was born in 1987. And We knew there was some trouble along the way in the pregnancy, and we were being very careful. Bev was staying in close contact with the doctors, and one night we realized that this baby was going to be born much too early. So we tore off to the hospital, and she was born at 26 weeks in the pregnancy, and that was in 1987. And there was good medical care then. There's much better medical care now. She experienced a variety of complications in those first 6.5 months that she spent in the hospital. And as she missed one developmental milestone after another, we realized that she'd be living with a variety of different disabilities. And as we worked with professionals, we got a better sense of the kinds of disabilities that she would be living with. But Nicole has this warm, generous, loving personality. She loves to be with people. She has a big smile and a very big laugh. And she has helped us to realize that one's abilities are not at the heart of one's value. And so that was just really great to get to, and I'm not saying all along the way that everything about it was great. There was grief where we had to grieve a child that we thought we were going to have as we came to love this child that God gave to us. But she's just a wonderful person, wonderful young woman. And so what I really wanted for her was that, as someone myself who loves the church, what I wanted for her is that she could also be able to participate in a church community in which she was also warmly welcomed, the way that I felt like I was warmly welcomed. So like in the book, we have this biblical foundation, and we quote in here, among other verses, 1 Corinthians 12, verse 22. Those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. So it's really easy for people to judge people like Nicole or anybody with a visible disability and say, oh, this is a weaker member. No, Paul says, no, they only seem to be weaker. They are indispensable. So here's my dream, that anybody of any congregation could look Nicole in the eye and say from their heart, you, Nicole, are indispensable to the life of this church. That they can look at the man who has Down syndrome and say, you are indispensable to the life of this church. They can look at the child with autism who just has no sit in him whatsoever and look at him and say to him, you are indispensable to the healthy functioning of this church. And that's really my dream, and that's where it comes from. And Nicole, God used Nicole in my life to lead me to the calling I have today, as well as my wife, who was a German teacher, and now the last 20 years she's been teaching special education.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. It was interesting because when we were dreaming about a title, Mark, you had shared, really just wanting us to focus on everyone has a place. Everyone is not just that we include people, but they actually have purpose, and we are better all together. I know even in our own church on Sunday, we watched the video that's on the website of Disability Concerns. Not sure if all of you have checked out the website lately, but on the very front, there's a beautiful 2-minute video on I am perfectly made in the image of God. And it's just amazing. And again, I encourage people to use things like that as a resource, but it is just this important theme, I think, Mark, that I know has driven all of your hard work all these years, and we are better for that. So,
oh, thanks, Cara. Yeah. And so what is our title? No weaker parts. Everyone is indispensable. So that's the idea. It's really easy for people to write other people off if they don't see them as somehow productive in some way that people define productive. Oh, they can teach Sunday school. They can preach. They can do administration. They can whatever. But that's not the way the Apostle Paul looks at it. And that's not the way that God looks at the church.
Mm-hmm. I think too, and I don't know, even just in our devotion, when I watched Jovita dancing, and I actually think that part of the beauty of that devotion for me, and I'm curious just of your insight of that, is not only that we got to watch her, but that there were people surrounding her that I wondered if they would have been as involved without her. So like, to me, it was kind of a real center place, that she wasn't just a piece of it, but she seemed to center that group. Now, I don't know the people in that song, and so I don't want to speak words for them, but I don't know, is that image to me felt really, I think, really strong. What did you think? It was lovely. And, that reminds me of a story. I can't comment either because I don't know how that video all got put together, but here's a story about Nicole. So Nicole now lives in a group home. For the first 18, 19 years, she lived with us and we worshiped together. I led a lot of the worship services in which she sat, and she could get quite busy, where she'd start clapping, or she'd vocalize and all that kind of stuff. Was she really trying to tell you to hurry it up, maybe? But anyways, keep telling your story.
Maybe she was trying to hurry me up. Maybe she was cheering and clapping because she loved what I was saying.
Maybe.
That could be it too. But anyway, one person came to me as the pastor of the congregation and said, is there any way, we don't want Nicole to leave, but is there any way that you can help her to stay more quiet? Well, I'm up in the front, so Bev does what she can. We actually started putting a sock over Nicole's hand so it would muffle the clapping a little bit, that kind of thing. Anyway, and Bev would sometimes whisper to Nicole. Anyway, after Nicole moved into the group home, suddenly she wasn't there on Sunday mornings anymore. And then we had a bunch of people come to us and say, oh, we miss Nicole so much, because her participation in the worship service reminded all of us of how good it is to be here in God's presence with God's people.
I love it. Thank you, Mark.
This is a woman who can't speak. She can't walk. Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that the world looks at her and says what she can't do, that all of us look at her and say what she can't do. But God sees her as an indispensable part of the body.
And it's powerful and big, and we appreciate your just sharing your family story. You've been doing this, Mark, a long time. And some of us would love it if you did it longer, but we also appreciate you. And so we're excited for your next adventure. But kind of as all that you've learned, I'm sure there's been a learning curve within your work professionally. And I think it comes down to why would you encourage churches to include families? So, our aim is always that families and their children with disabilities or adults with disabilities will just find their place within church communities, and that they're not just there, but that they're fully included. Why would you encourage churches? Talk to me about that kind of more of your work side.
Sure. Well, and you can answer this question better than I can, just because. Oh,
I'll have my time.
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to make sure I stop you with time so I get to talk too. Don't worry.
Unless I keep talking and talking and talking.
Yeah, no, I'll stop. I can get Becky to mute you, so it's okay. But yes, this is still your time.
There we go. Yeah. But I know that you can say a lot about this articulately, and I'm eager to hear from you. This verse, this is also in the book, page 13. 1 Peter 4, verse 10. Each one should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. So why do we encourage churches to go about this work? Well, certainly to enhance belonging, to enhance a sense that everybody is involved. There's this deeper sense of what it means to be truly loving if we're exhibiting it with one another and showing what a loving community we have. And what strikes me about this verse, and that phrase especially, faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms, what that's saying is that if we write some people off and say, you don't really have anything to give here, we are not faithfully stewarding God's grace. We are saying, no, we don't need the grace of God that God will bring through you. We don't need that grace. We're saying to the woman who lost her speech because she had a stroke and she feels like she's been sidelined now, we don't need God's grace that would come through you if we still helped you find the ways that you can participate. So that's, that's a kind of a blunt and almost harsh way to phrase it, but do you want God's grace to flow fully through your church community, or do you want to limit the grace that God is eager to give within your church community? Well, then the answer starts to get pretty obvious. Well, I guess we want God's grace to flow fully. And, so then you need to, for congregations, to start thinking about, well, what barriers are we erecting in our physical environment, in our communications, even in our, liturgies and so on, and the ways that we go about worship, in our attitudes. How are we keeping people from fully engaging? And so that's where, our work is involved in helping people awaken to those barriers and learn what can we do about that.
Yeah. We want God to flow fully.
Yeah. Yeah, don't we?
We do. Keep saying it, Mark. Even in retirement, we want God to flow fully.
We do.
I love it. And I think in the end, it's also comes from the realization that when there is room for someone, there's room for me, right? That the second we create a space and I would think, whatever that looks like, that I know in our own church's story, we've had over seasons some kiddos who, again, worshiped quite loudly. But I believe there was something that allowed for us to recognize that there's room for me now too. There's room for all of me, not just, and I think that God flowing fully just allows to cleanse that, right? That there's space.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, that I and all my weakness and, insecurity and whatever it is that I'm dragging, there's room for me to be fully who I am. I'm welcome here too. I love it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, and then it makes me think about, I was at a worship service of a congregation which is very intentional about engaging people with disabilities. So yeah, it can get kind of loud sometimes during the worship service. It's called Benjamin's Hope. And the Sunday that I was there, there was a baptism of somebody who was not a baby. In fact, I think 2 of them were baptized, and it was because they hadn't been welcome at other congregations. And then finally, they were scared about taking the risk of, well, I don't know if we want to take the risk of being rejected again. And then they came to this congregation and were fully welcomed. And then, the baptism, and it's so exciting. So you ask, why is this important? Because this is about being the body of Christ.
Yeah. And we want God to flow fully.
We do. We want God to flow fully with all of God's grace through all of God's people. Yeah. So is it my turn to ask you questions, Cara?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
I'm ready.
Okay. By the way, I changed all the questions I was going to ask you.
I'm ready.
All right. So, why are you excited about this book?
Oh, I know. I have been a bit excited. I just feel like I was a receiver of this book. So I should be claimed that I didn't have any part of this book other than as an encourager, but I liked the old one, but this one first, I think what I love is it's readable. It's not huge. All of you hopefully got them in the mail, but there is a lot at the back. I think the specific disability section allows for people to feel more informed. I think a lot of times people just feel, I really do believe that our feeling like we want to know more becomes a barrier. And I don't want to say ignorance, but I think it's our insecurities. Well, I don't really know about dementia, or I don't really know about blindness. Yep. I don't really know about developmental disability. And that can be a hindrance. And so I love that that's there. I love that it's readable. And I think, it's not an area where there's a ton of resources. Like there are some good books out there for sure, but not a ton. And so I was just so thrilled to have something that was kind of brought by a need into usage. So when we were dreaming about this learning conference, I'll be honest, I was one of those like, we're focusing it on the book. So because I think it's nice to have both. It's nice to learn from some of us, but it's also really important to have something to take away and share.
Yes,
And I
thank you.
think lastly, I'm going to add, I want families to feel a little more equipped. I want families to feel like they have another resource that they can pull in to say, actually, could you help read this with me? Or can you read this instead of me? Families have to be the ones who teach everything all the time.
Oh, so that's not always on their backs to
Yeah,
be
I think, or
to
even
be the
individual
trainers.
advocates, right? Sometimes people themselves have a heart for this ministry, but feel alone in it. And it's like, actually, what if we got books for a few people to read and we got them to think about it? So I just hope that it brings a voice to people who need to feel supported and acknowledged, and that they'll feel kind of really encouraged to keep going.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to ask myself that same question about why I'm excited about the book,
Okay.
and just say a little bit. I won't steal all of your
I'll
time.
let you. It's okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's a collaboration between 4 different ministries. So Christian Reformed Disability Concerns, Reformed Church in America, Disability Concerns, Elam Christian Services, which is based in Chicago area, and Christian Horizons, which is based, Waterloo, I think, Ontario, or Kitchener. Kitchener, Ontario is like their home base. But anyway, I'm thrilled to be able to have a number of different organizations participating and putting it together. And so then it made for a bigger editorial team. And one of the things that we wanted to do was to do a lot more centering of the perspectives of people who have disabilities. So almost all of the articles in here that say disability perspective have been written by people who have lived experience with disability themselves. Including a pastor who has autism and has a couple of kids with autism, and anyway, a variety of others as well. And I'm really excited about that with this new edition.
I agree.
All right, so you've been a regional disability advocate for years in CRC classes in Alberta.
Yeah.
You started leading the ministry years ago. I think before we ever met, you started Empowered Planning. So what do you think are the values of being a disability advocate for Cara?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, for me, I think if a few people in our audience know me a little bit, but I'm not shy. And I have a passion for this work. So, but I have found, so I guess technically you could say, well, Cara just can do this work, right? She could just jump in and talk to churches. And, but I would be honest to say that being part of this advocate team has been so helpful, because just because I am confident to speak up does not always mean that I'm not reminded when to speak up, or that I'm reminded how. So I know in our meetings together, I've appreciated the accountability. I've appreciated someone saying, what are you doing in this work? And I was like, that's a good question. And it's made me think and reflect. So I know I've done better work because I've had people keeping me accountable. But I also feel supported. I don't think it's like the hard side. It's like a network of people. It's so comforting to know there's people out there that have a heart for the same thing I have a heart for. And I take energy from that and hope in that. So I've loved it. I just can't imagine not doing it. I think it's been a place of great community and joy for me.
Said, oh, this is like a little bit of heaven.
Yeah, it is. It's and there's some really great people.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is off the cuff here.
Okay, I'm ready.
So maybe a little bit putting on the spot, but can you tell us one story in your involvement, and it could be within your own congregation or like in your work as a regional advocate with other churches, just something that was something that happened that you said, oh, thank God, this really is why I keep plugging away at this.
Oh, all the time. All the time. I mean, I guess I should give a quick context for those who know me, but so I've had my own business for a really long time, so almost 20 years. So I am a community building consultant. I'm not sure how to call myself, but I travel all over Canada and I train organizations in how to support people with disabilities. So professionally, I've always worked in the disability field and do training. What was interesting for me, and I know this sounds, well, it's just my story, I think, is that I did this work for almost 10 years before I even considered that my faith and my work could actually be in the same story. So my work is almost completely only with organizations outside the church. So I work in schools and with public organizations and government organizations. And it literally wasn't until I actually met Mark and he started sharing his work that I actually even had the dream about supporting people with disabilities in their faith story, and that I could be a part of that story. So just based on how I lived, I went to church and I did my work, and it never occurred to me, or at least God had not planted in the heart that they were connected, except just in small things. And so this work has pushed me a lot and in all of the best ways. I think it's come in many different ways. I think what I have found is it's not always in the big advocacy kind of times. It's not like I feel like I have to sit people down and say, this is how we include people, but it is in conversations. It is in slow and gentle conversations. So I've had those conversations with different pastors in my area where we've had coffee together. Sometimes it starts with them just doing some kind of sermon where they're going to refer to people with disabilities and want to use the right language. Sometimes it's supporting things in a really gentle way. And it's not these like very big aggressive meetings, but it's just relationships with people. And they know that I have a heart for including all people. And in turn, I try and help them in small ways to do that. So I think for me, there is lots of stories. I think of a time meeting with a pastor and we just had this conversation and I just I could just feel his brain opening up. Yeah. Like he just was like, I just hadn't thought of it this way. And he said something like, we just didn't learn about this in seminary.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know, but it's here. And, and I often say, people will say something like, well, it just really doesn't affect our church community. And I always say, and I will credit Eric Carter for this stat, but he talks about 1 in 4 families are affected by some type of disability. And so my gentle response has always been, well, if you have more than 4 families, it's a story in your church. Whether those families have left or not is a different story. But if you only have 3 families, you're allowed to give me that answer. But after that, it is a story in your church. And either you're doing it and not recognizing the important work you're doing, or you're not doing it and someone feels excluded.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. That's great. Yeah, 1 in 4. It really is.
It's all of us, right? It's just the human being story.
Yeah, but it brings it home. I mean, these neighbors, it's fellow church members, it's people that we might call shut-ins, or people who've had strokes, people with hearing impairments. Yeah. All right. So you've written a couple books, and now, so we have this new Everybody Belongs Serving Together. So if somebody read both of your books and this Everybody Belongs Serving Together, how would you encourage churches to include people with disabilities? I assume we didn't have every insight in this book, which is fine. There are people like you who have other insight. People you mentioned, Eric Carter, and lots of other good folks too. I mean, it's a big company of people working at this. But so all that to say, where would somebody start with including people with disabilities in church life?
Yeah, I actually do get this question a lot, and I'm always excited to have the question asked. So I do have kind of a top 3. Where would you start? Okay, well, I have more than 3. I'll watch time, but
to the top 3.
Okay, I would say first is in words. So I do think language matters, words matter, and in the disability field, it does matter. And so just the gentle answer of we always want to talk about people first and disability second. So that means we don't talk about a Downs kid, but we talk about children, and hopefully specifically a name. So like Tim, who has Down syndrome. And so that would be my first, just whether you're coming from a pastoral perspective, an elder or deacon perspective, or just wanting to be super friendly to that new family. Just keep in mind that we always talk about kids or adults first and any kind of disability or labels second.
Okay, so language.
What's that?
Language.
Language matters.
Think about language. Okay. All right. That's
The
fine.
second thing is, I think sometimes we get caught in wanting to help people. But in turn, I think we miss what is actually, Mark, what you talked about. So this is maybe more the specific. I've always said Mark and I work good together. He's the big thinker and I'm the one that's like right practical, like what are we doing right now?
Yep.
And my answer for there is, yeah, we want responsibility, not charity. So
Okay.
it's about if we're going to look at supporting a kiddo in Sunday school, or if we want to support a young man or woman within the service, that we don't put our energy into thinking of it like, how do we help them, but more about how can they serve us? And in turn, they might need other supports as well. We don't ignore need, but recognizing that it's not just about creating volunteers who are going to help this child, but in turn, how they can in turn make sure that child gives back in some kind of way, shape, or form. That could be within their Sunday school class. It really could be anything. When I supported a young kid in our church, his way of contributing was to hand out the snack. Now, he also wanted to eat the snack, so we had to do it really fast, but we worked really hard. And I just want to just acknowledge that it's hard work. And this is really easy for me to say, oh, we want to work on responsibility, not charity, but it's super hard and has to be intentional.
It takes creativity to think about how can we help this person to be able to serve. So people first language, providing people an opportunity to serve and being creative about that. And then number 3?
Well, it goes back to, I think, and all of these are in section 1 of the book that I'm a fan of, I should just acknowledge, is work. The one thing that I think that I would bring in from my own heart is the importance of being noticed, known, and missed. So that is the title of my second book and something that I'm passionate about. But that basically means noticed. Do you look at my face and smile at me, even with a mask on? Do you notice me? 2, do you know my name? And 3, do you miss me when I'm gone? And your story about Nicole is the beautiful example of that. So I see you, I call you by name, and I notice when you're away. This is not about disabilities. I actually do believe that all churches can benefit from being noticed, known, and missed, to a point that my beautiful church here in Calgary, we used to, and hopefully we'll get back to really quick, before COVID, but do name tag Sundays. So once a month was Name Tag Sunday, because I don't believe that this is just about people with disabilities, that we all deserve to be noticed, known, and missed. And so I would encourage everyone to wear name tags. And then I had a few people who said, well, no, I know everyone in the church. So I'd give them a quiz if they knew my children's names, and they didn't. So they had to wear name tags. So I guess what I'd hold is it's not just about disability. I guess this last one, it's about recognizing the importance of just starting with a wave. I guess just to acknowledge, and I guess to add to this, so maybe it's a 4th really fast, is I think we get caught in programs.
I don't know. Am I going to give you a 4th one? Okay. All right. Go ahead.
We get caught in worrying about creating programs, and we forget just to start with the families we have. So my 4th kind of extra one is we start with the families we have and the individuals and the adults we have, not with who we think might walk through the door, in the sense of, do we know, notice, and miss the people already present in our space? And then start there.
That makes me think about that. If people in a congregation are being intentional and thinking about, these issues, it's not, like you said, it's not just about disability. This is about being the body of Christ. And if we're working hard at this as we're thinking about people with disabilities, we're growing overall as a congregation in the congregational life.
Always better when we all belong, right? But it is just when we create a foundation, I think, of noticed, known, and missed, it does lead to natural support for families who have children or adults with disabilities, because it creates that foundation to say, we see you, we care about you, and we're interested to talk. So it doesn't mean we have the answer. And I think that's the last thing, is we get fearful that we have to have some answer, that there has to be like this perfect way of, and I'll be honest, lots of times it's really complicated. But I think families don't expect the answer. They just want to be cared about, that the people are willing to try, that they're willing to ask.
So instead of saying, I think there's a church down the street that might be appropriate for your family, instead of saying that, to say, wow, I have no idea how to make this work, but let's start thinking about that together.
I worked with a mama who walked into our building and she looked at me and she said, someone told us that your church would be welcoming. And I was like, okay, here we go. For 10 years, they had not been able to find a church that said yes.
Oh,
So their son was 12. And I'm going to just be super honest that this beautiful mom sat on her very first time in our church. We sat outside the church space just because she felt that need to be near her son and not in the pew area. And she cried the entire time. And I cried the entire time. Do not doubt the power of just being seen. She did not expect me to know how to support her son in church. She didn't know herself, but she just wanted a place to say, we see you, we care, we're going to try and figure this out together. And it took a long time and it was kind of messy, but it was beautifully messy.
Yeah.
It was beautifully messy and it made us better. But I will never forget that moment where I just said, of course, come in.
Yeah.
And we started there.
Yeah, and like you were saying earlier, if there's enough space for this young man and we're going to work at that, then maybe there's space for me here too.
Totally.
Yeah. So it's just about time for anybody other questions. So for the rest of you, if you have questions, thoughts, comments, please feel free to think about those, chat those to Becky.
And make sure the really hard ones go to Mark.
Okay. Yeah, I'll take the really hard ones. And then I'll use my power of delegation. Okay. So how would you talk about community? Maybe it says give us a snapshot. Maybe you already did, but anything else?
I can do it. Yeah. So that would be my work is around community building. And so what I would say is my quick answer to that is community is right where you are. So it's not actually somewhere you find, and it's not something you can create. You're already there, always. And whether that's on Zoom, so big surprise, but we're in community. 55 people. Now, it doesn't look like a typical community, but we still live life together. Whether you're sitting in church, even if you don't know anybody, that person around you, even if they're 6 feet apart, is still community. When you walk out of that church building, the people walking their dog, that is community. Yeah. So what I would honor churches is to say it's not about going out to be in community or get community or encourage community. It's just about being where you are. And in turn, to slow down with that sometimes we get caught in feeling like it needs to be fancy or big. And in turn, often it's actually just turning to the person near you and waving 6 feet apart at times, but waving. Yeah. And I would say we need to just start there.
So just be fully present in this moment and then be fully present to the other person who's also here.
I think we have this heart to want to reach out, and I love that, but I'm like, but who are we reaching beyond right now? Like who's actually in front of us that in turn, sometimes we're just not even looking at. It doesn't mean we can't, of course, reach out as well. But I always say like, who's actually sitting next to you currently? So right now, Mark, you're in my community.
Yeah.
Pretty lucky.
And the others. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looks like Chantel would like to hear all of you.
Chantel.
Oh, go ahead. I guess you need to unmute yourself, Chantel.
Hi. First of all, I want to say hi to you both because you're dear friends of mine.
Just a second, Chantel. One of the most fun times I've ever had in my life was when Chantel and Cara and me and then Neil Cudney, the four of us were a panel together at a conference in Calgary. And man, oh man, I think especially between Chantel and Cara, I laughed harder than I ever have. So thank you.
That's awesome. I probably peed, but
no pressure, Chantel. No pressure.
Right.
But ask a question.
Hopefully this is a relatively fun question. It does point out that you're dear friends of mine that I respect deeply and love very much. So it's good to see you both, and great job so far. Cara, you mentioned that the best initial strategy, at least, is to start with the families that you have. And I agree with you, but my question is, then what? Because too often the argument is, well, so-and-so and so-and-so are not complaining, so we don't need to do anything more, right? And I'm kind of more of the philosophy, if you build it, they will come. And so where's the line between doing what makes the most sense in the moment, but also planning for a more accessible future.
Mhm.
Dun, dun, dun. Yes. But what I guess my heart would say is the second that I really listen to the family within my existing church community, chances are parts of the things that they need from our church or a church would actually still be as needed from another family's perspective. So it could be unique, but chances are when we start listening to a family to say, actually, I need a space for my child to go because they have a hard time sitting, then all of a sudden we create an atmosphere where there's space for all kids or adults to move around. So, and a tiny example, I don't know if this is what you meant, Chantel, but so in our church, we struggled. We had a kiddo at one point who struggled to sit. He was just ready to move around. And that was welcomed, but the mom was really wanting him to try and sit a little longer. So we created kind of a busy box for him. But we created busy boxes for everyone. So there was boxes everywhere. So all the kids could get them, adults could get them, and we created them to be generic enough for all ages. So the idea was that we listened to that one family, but in turn, other families benefited. So the other children or adults in church would often talk about how they wanted this special box. My hope is that in turn, I don't know this next family's need, but it's just about listening as we go. So rather than creating programming to hope some child would fit into it, I'd rather react to the need and believe that actually once we do one thing, it actually benefits everybody, right? So it wasn't just his busy box. It was actually, we had like 50 of them. I had the coolest stuff.
Yeah, that's universal design. And if people don't know that word, that's the new word for people to learn. So a short advertisement. Chantel, along with Jasmine Duckworth, will be our featured speakers in the fourth segment of this series. So we're really looking forward to that, Chantel. Thanks, Mark, and great job. And I also love the book. So that will come out in our presentation as well. So great job.
Thanks. And I don't know, this is great because all the questions are going to Cara.
Oh, no. So
the question for Man Masters, what was in your busy box, Cara?
Yeah, they were different. They were actually small bags. One was actually a set of small pencil crayons, really small with a sharpener and some paper. There was fidget toys in there that we got online on Amazon. I had a small budget. We had...
Sorry, what kind of toys? Can you say it again?
Sorry. Fidget toys.
Fidget.
So
Okay,
literally
fidget.
I went on Amazon and got a box of fidget toys and I switched them around all the time. So at the end of the day, I would just change them up. So it was like crayons, paper, and a few toys. And then they were available for everyone. And I would often say it's not just for kids. And lots of adults, right, like to take notes. I would say, is that really notes or is that coloring with a pencil? But anyways, so I think the idea is just to recognize that it was just available. It can look like anything. And I did change them up sometimes. I'm going to be honest, is now it doesn't exist. Yeah, there's pencils and pencil crayons now, less of the toys just because of COVID. But
oh, yeah.
They were pretty simple.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm kind of going back again to Chantel's question. So, yeah, starting where you are. But one of the things I appreciate about Chantel's question is that if we're serious about really being a welcoming community, and like you said, Cara, here was this mother and child who hadn't felt welcomed. All of a sudden, a lot of churches, their eyes light up when you use the word outreach. We are talking also about the opportunities for reaching out to people in the community who are eager to be part of a church fellowship, who love the Lord, but have not felt welcome somewhere else. And then, as a congregation, we can say, and you are welcome here. And we'll find a place for you here.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We don't have the answers, but we'll find our way.
Because those families are smart, right? They know. Don't come and tell me you have the answer. Because they're like, do you?
Yeah, right. But what a beautiful thing to say. We don't have the answers. We're an imperfect group here. We're all learning together. None of us are perfect. I mean, isn't that the kind of place we all want to be at, where nobody's perfect and they can admit to that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, but yeah, it's interesting. But I think, thank you guys, your good questions about your busy boxes. But I would say the key of that, and I hope Chantel, this fits what you're saying, is I didn't just create one busy box for one kid. We had like 40 of them available. So it was space for anyone to come. So that's basically my premise.
Yeah, well, I think that the concept of universal design is really important. And I also think that I just want to promote the idea that just because you think you've met the needs of the congregation that's already there doesn't mean you have to stop there, right? Once you've done that, you can keep advancing in the road to accessibility. The fact that my church already had large print bulletins and automatic doors and things made a huge difference to me, but we're a lot further in the way of accessibility now than we were 10 years ago.
And I think I think what I guess is we just keep going. I agree, Chantel, we're not done. I mean, I'm going to get Chantel one day to come preach at our church. And what we'll find is we don't have an accessible pulpit. And I like, bring it on. Bring it on. Like,
that's not a problem in the virtual world. You could get me now, and that
I will take you now. But I think
I would say
yes, and that's a whole other workshop. Like the benefits of a virtual world. But I guess what I'm saying is I don't want to act like all things are figured out. Right. It is a reaction sometimes. But my hope is that once there's an accessible space, it's accessible for everyone, like you said.
And by promoting the idea that we'll work it out together says not only that you're willing to be adaptive, but that you want the people to be there and to stay there and to feel at home there.
Yeah.
Which that's key.
Yep, exactly.
Anything?
I don't know. What do you think, Becky? We got time for one more question?
I think so.
Okay.
I haven't seen any come in, but if anybody wants to raise their hand, that would be awesome.
They're probably like, they're going to make us do a session.
Brave people, they can't bite you.
No, I just really want to affirm. I put it in the chat, but I loved, there were the two really takeaways. I thought, the whole session was great, and I do love the book. It's really well laid out. But just, Mark, when you're challenging, do you really want to limit God's grace? I think that's great, because I think that can really stop people in their tracks. But then also, Cara, when you said, we see you, we care about you, and we're interested to talk. That's so important. And pointing out, even though we don't know what to do, because you're right, that in my experience too, that's often what keeps leaders in congregations from being welcoming. It's like, oh, I don't know what to do. And when we don't know what to do something, then we just kind of like shuffle it off. But I think that's like a really important, and it's very simple truth that can make a difference to people.
And I think, just as someone who's, all of you are here for a variety of reasons, but I always say, like, I'll have church committees say, well, what should we do? And my first answer is like, I don't know. Like, and I say that in love, like, I don't know this family. I have no idea. Obviously I have basic ideas of accessible design, but beyond that, like, I don't know what that kiddo needs, or what that young man needs, or what that couple needs. And I think we start there with, like, I just think it's okay to start that conversation with, I don't know, but let's talk about it and see. So, yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me, one of the many, many things I learned from Barbara Newman is that she said that in church context, it is not that important to learn, what the name is of the person's disability.
Yeah.
Let's get to know the person. Let's get to know Tim. Let's get to know Leanne. Let's get to know, whoever it is. That's the important part.
So, Mark, as we kind of wrap up, I want to pull it back to you, and I'm putting you on the spot now.
Okay.
You are kind of coming to the end of a bit of the story. I'm not letting you go completely, just so you know, because we're friends. So too bad you're in this forever. But can I just say, like, if you were just to finish this off, what does your heart want to say to people, not just from this session, but kind of finishing off this career, like, in this way? If you could just say one thing to encourage people.
Well, I don't know about all the rest of you, but I have found just being able to participate in this conversation to be deeply encouraging. What do we want the body of Christ to look like? What about the folks who are experiencing depression and anxiety, and what about those of us who just feel inadequate a lot of the time? And we can go on and on, because we all have all kinds of challenges that we face. And wouldn't it be beautiful to have that vision of the body of Christ being fully engaged with everybody and have room for everybody, and that we don't have to be perfect?
Totally. Just like Becky's computer's not perfect right now. This is a beautiful example.
Becky, and I think Becky's been trying to send me messages. I don't know what I haven't been.
And
I'm just keeping calm in the storm, but it's
Becky, there's room for you. There is room for your imperfect computer.
Exactly.
Yeah, sorry, Becky. Okay, her Zoom froze, and okay. So
does anyone else have questions that they want to use their own voice for before we finish?
There's one other from Jenny, who was trying to reach me on my other Becky that I can't get to. So, Jenny, I'm just going to open it up to you for one last question. I hope that was all that I missed, and I'm so sorry.
Okay.
You're welcome, Jenna. But that's okay, Becky. See, room for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Even your computer.
Yeah.
I don't see Jenny, but
Jenny, I think I see you, but do you need to unmute yourself, maybe? If you, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I have lost a question because I sent it to Becky directly. So I'm going to try and find it. It had to do with Mark's comment about wanting God's grace fully. And then I thought I heard the word limits. And then I wasn't sure if I heard that correctly. And then my mind went to, because you did tell a story about some people not accepting the fact that those with disabilities have something to offer. So then my mind went to the use of the word selective. So I just felt that sometimes people are very selective on who they choose to approach.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because they make assumptions about the gifts, so it's people that are very out in the open that are doing their gifts, but there's a lot of people in the background that are fearful and not being selected. Is that your experience? Either one of you?
Oh, sure. I don't know about all of you, but I feel a lot more people. I would rather be around people that I feel comfortable with than anybody that somehow makes me feel, uncomfortable in some way.
Yeah.
And if I meet somebody who's somehow different from me, often I start to feel a little uncomfortable. And so, that's a natural reaction. And then it's like, okay, but is that at the heart of what's most important in terms of community? Is that I always feel comfortable? And the answer is no.
Mm-hmm.
No. The important thing is that, Jesus says, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Well, Lord willing, it's not always going to feel like taking up a cross to be in community, but once in a while, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to mean some self-sacrifice. It's going to mean setting aside my own comfort or whatever else so that I can engage, and make room for somebody else.
But I always say we just start with waving. We can do that with masks on even.
Yes. Yes.
I believe we are done our time. And I want to say, oh, look at Jenna's asking questions now. I just want people to feel like it's okay to go if you need to go. If people of typical ability may feel uncomfortable around people with disabilities, then what can I, as a person with disability, make room for you? Dun, dun, dun. I would offer the same, like to be seen by you. To be greeted and acknowledged by you, right? The gifts of both, right? So it's not just that it's being seen and loved on and acknowledged by both.
Yes.
That would be my really fast answer to that. It's just about being seen and then realizing how much we have in common and that Jenna is amazing. And so you should all know that Jenna's amazing. So I'd like to be seen by her anytime.
Yeah, that is a great answer. Thank you, Cara. So thank you, everybody. This was great. This hour goes by so fast. Same time next week, and actually all 4 Thursdays in October. Next week, I know Dan Vanderplatz and maybe one of you who's here today will be talking about the 5 stages of disability attitudes. Very excited about that and about just thinking about this is a beautiful continuum that Dan worked on to develop, and he worked with many other people. So that'll be next week. So thank you for coming tonight, and don't go yet, please, because Jovita is going to close out our time together.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace.
Amen. I'm wondering, Becky, if we can just keep this open just a minute in case someone has an individual question.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to just hope that, but I just want to say blessings to you all. Go forth. Have a good evening.
Yes, God's blessings. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.